Hola, mi gente.
I'm not even sure where to start. I'm typing with my hands shaking. Here I am, lying on my bed looking at the wall, feeling as if I've been run over by a car. My world is on its side, and I don't know how to stop it. But I have no choice but to give it all away here. And perhaps jotting it down will be the thing that will help me work out what to do. This year has been a catastrophe. Catastrophe from top to bottom. Everything began in April, when my husband Mateo lost his job. I remember the day so clearly. It was a Thursday 2 days after my birthday. I was still in a birthday happiness mode, and I just brought home some fresh pan dulce from the bakery. I thought it would be a good thing for us to drink with coffee. When I arrived, I found him lying on the couch, staring at the floor like he had seen a ghost. He hadn't even seen me enter. I placed the bag of pastries on the counter and made my way over to him.
Mateo, ¿qué pasó, amor?
I asked, standing beside him and touching his arm. His breath was heavy and he let out a weary sigh. They released me, he said, his voice dry. Just like that. No premonition, no prep, no rationalization. They let me go. My gut churned, but I didn't panic. Let's figure it out, I hugged him. We always do. Then I wish I'd known what I know now. I wish I'd seen the cracks beginning to emerge. But love makes you blind. I worked more shifts for the next few weeks. My job is at the grocery store, not the most glamorous, but it pays the bills. I took on whatever shifts I could, coming in for colleagues whenever needed. I went from working 40 hours a week to 70. Every shift was brutal. My feet throbbed, my back split open, and my patience dwindled with each passing day. But I kept going. I did it for us, for me and Mateo. Initially, I didn't mind that he was at home all day. He told me he was trying to apply for jobs on the internet and working on his resume. I believed him. He is my husband, why should I doubt him? And the thing is, he was not alone. Gabriela, our best friend, began visiting us more and more. I didn't give it much thought. Gabriela had gone out of work too, and I thought she needed to be around. We have been friends since college, and she has been my sister all my life. If ever you want to crash, mi casa es tu casa, I said it. But I didn't mean this in a specific way. That night it all almost dropped out. Yesterday evening began like any other. I returned from a 12-hour shift, legs like rubber, head pounding from dealing with unruly customers all day. I left my bag outside the door, removed my shoes, and stood there for a moment, breathing in the silence. But it didn't stay quiet long. I could hear the TV in the living room. Mateo was watching TV, I figured. But then I heard laughter. Not just his, her laugh. Gabriela's laugh. I walked in and there they were. Mateo and Gabriela, cuddling on the sofa like it was a date. His arm was wrapped around her shoulders and she was leaning into him like she'd done it 1,000 times. It wasn't a good friend hug. It was intimate. The type of intimacy you find only between people who love each other. They did not even flinch. No cringe-worthy scuttling, no, oh, it's not what it seems. None of that. Gabriela sat back up slowly, gazing at me as though to be annoyed that I had interrupted them. Mateo also sat up, scratching the neck with his hands as if in pain but not ashamed. I could hardly walk for a second. My body turned stiff. My brain was uncoupled from my legs. My chest felt tight, and my hands began to tremble. The heart beat like a drum in my ear. I don't know how I managed to remain cool. I should have screamed. I should have thrown something. But I did not. Just stood up, walked to the bathroom, and shut the door behind me. I sat on the toilet, head in my hands, as if the ground had broken beneath me. I heard them muttering in the living room but could not understand. I did not care what they were saying. Already knew. Already knew. The tears began to flow, and I could not pause them. The entire place trembled with tears. The kind of crying that makes your chest hurt, that you feel like you are dying. Then the nausea hit. I barely reached the sink before throwing up everything I had eaten that day. Knock knock. Camila, are you okay? It was Mateo's voice, quiet but audible. I covered my lips, let out a big sigh and went, no, obviously. Silence. Then Gabriela spoke. I think we should probably discuss this, she said as if it were some kind of unscheduled annoyance. as if I'd witnessed them nibbling off the last of the cake, rather than smashing my marriage. I didn't open the door. I didn't want to see their faces. Talk to the door, I said, my throat dry from crying. And then Mateo uttered the words that turned everything. Okay, fine. We didn't want you to find out like this, but... Yes, Gabriela and I have been together since July. Could barely breathe. My heart stopped. I thought I misheard him. A relationship. Not an oversight. Not a slip of the tongue. A friendship. I missed the rest of what he said because my brain went into hibernation. My ears started ringing. My hands were squeezing my knees so hard that my nails were digging into my flesh. I felt like I was in a separate body and watching from an outside position. Gabriela's voice penetrated the silence. So, what do you think? What do I think? What do I think? I should have screamed. I should have flung the door open and cursed them both out. But I did not. I stayed quiet. I stayed calm. You didn't hear where we said the three of us could live together. Gabriela continued, as if selling me a package holiday. I questioned her if she was still speaking because, at the very least, I thought I had gotten something wrong. You could join me too if you like. She said it in such a laid-back voice that I felt sick. Well, let's just live together, you know? I did not answer. I was sitting there so tightly that my hands were going cold. I thought of all of the time Gabriela had been over, the time she had laid on the couch because she was too tired to get home. I remembered the evenings she'd come to dinner and how we were little family. I remembered every time I'd trusted her, every silly time I've thought she was my friend.
Mi casa es tu casa.
That was my first mistake. I stayed in that bathroom longer than I ought to have. I don't remember how long, 10 minutes, maybe 30. Time was treacherous, I was in a mist. My brain was spinning, playing the same scene in loops. Mateo and Gabriela in the couch. Mateo's. We've been dating since July. Gabriela's sarcastic proposition. We could all share a flat. I dumped cold water on my face to sweat myself out of it, but it didn't help. I saw myself in the mirror and I didn't even know who was looking at me. I had bloated and red eyes, a face as pallid as that of a ghost. My long black hair was curled from a day's work. My shirt was folded and sweat-stained. I was as if swept away in the wind. This is what I get for 70-hour weeks working for a man who doesn't even love me anymore. Got that slap in the face. He doesn't love me anymore. Sucked more than anything else. Not the lying, not even the knowing. I washed my face, opened the bathroom door and left. Mateo and Gabriela were on opposite sides of the couch now, like two stealing candy kids. Mateo looked up at me with a look of what seemed like blame. Gabriela just looked at me like she was gonna throw me out. You guys both have to talk. I held my arms across my chest in the doorway. My voice was still too still. It was that quiet just before a hurricane. Mateo sighed like he was done with all this. Like he's the victim here. See, Camila, he began, his hands running through his hair. I didn't want it this way. I didn't want you to discover that. What did you want me to know, Mateo? He said. My response was as hard as glass. You were gonna tell me at dinner. Leave me a note. Tell me when I'm at work. He had no answer. He just sat there, rubbing his hands as though he were flaming them. Gabriela bent down, knees on the floor. She had her brown eyes fixed on mine as though reading me. We were going to tell you, she said with a lilt, as if she were making some kind of rational connection. But we didn't know how. Well, surprise we're in love is a decent intro, I snapped. It's not like that, Camila, Gabriela said, shaking her head. We did not design this, okay? It just happened. I laughed, but not like you do when something is funny. It was empty, cold, bitter. Oh, please, don't fuck me with that. It just happened, crap. People get into puddles, not friendships. Gabriela sat back, silent. Mateo opened his mouth like he was going to say something, but I interrupted him. You've been cheating on me since July, Mateo. Do you understand that? You were in here. Slapping on while I was running myself to the ground. I put my hands up at them both. I breathed faster, my chest came up and down like a mile. I trusted you, Mateo. I trusted both of you. Camila, I still love you. Mateo hurriedly said and leaned forward like that would help. This does not change that. Does not change that. I repeated, tilting my head. You care about me, huh? Do I get a kick out of that? I pointed at Gabriela. You loved her, you took her into my house, into my marriage. And you, I said to Gabriela. You sat at my kitchen table, you ate my food, you drank my wine, and then you slept with my husband. Gabriela looked away, but not in shame. She was more like she was sick of hearing me. That was it. I was done. Get out. Gritted teeth, all my words, deliberate and fine. What? Gabriela looked as if she'd missed me. You heard me. Out. Her mouth was shut tight. She looked at Mateo and just waited for him to get on something. And he just sat there like a cockroach. His eyes moving back and forth between us, but never in mine. Camila, she began, that unfunny, fake, silent tone they give you when you sound like you're nuts. I don't have a place to go. My lease is up. I have nowhere else. Not your fault, Gabriela. My voice pierced hers like a knife. You need to have done that before you got boobed with my husband. Gabriela rolled her eyes like an inveterate adolescent. Wow. Real mature, Camila. That did it. I ran right up to her, took out her purse from the coffee table and threw it at her. I kicked her in the arm. Out. Now. She awoke so quick the couch creaked. Okay, she yelled and shoved her purse over her shoulder. I'm going. She passed me, knocking on my shoulder. But she was done at the door. She stooped at the door, of course. They have always one last thing. Yeah, maybe had you really listened to him, she scoffed. He wouldn't have come to me. I saw red. My hands curled into fists, my whole body steaming mad. I marched up to her. Recite that, I challenged, voice as low as lightning. Her eyes grew a little. Forget it, she said and slammed the door. I'm gone. Do not go back, I said. I'll call the cops myself if I see you on this porch. She shut the door behind her and I just stood there, shivering with a feeling of my heart beating faster. It was as if I had just won 10 rounds of boxing. My fists were still locked and my jaw tight. But she was gone. I turned to Mateo. He was still on the couch, looking down at the floor. For a minute, don't feel you're screwed, I said, gliding up to him like a lion on the hunt. I know, he whispered, hands in his hair. I'm sorry, Camila. Got a typo. Messed up, I repeated, crossing my arms. A fuck-up is torching dinner. I was waving my hand around the room. This is betrayal. That is deception of the deepest order, Mateo. You left me for dead. You left my marriage for dead. And you left yourself for dead. He did not argue. He just sat there staring at his hands like they were the cause. Nah, sleep on the sofa, I told him. And never say to me anything else than I say to you. He nodded, silent. I went to the bedroom and shut the door. I fell on my back and fell to the floor with my face in my hands. For the first time all night I cried. No quiet, dignified tears. I cried like my heart was splitting because that's what it felt like. Cried because I loved. I wept over the faith they crushed. I wept for the girl I used to be before they ruined her. But then something in me changed. Got something in me frozen. They're never gonna break me again. Monday is coming. Mateo will be thinking that I am working. But I am seeing a lawyer. My Monday morning did not take so long. I was a shell of a sleeper all weekend, but I woke up anyway at 6 a.m. My body was on autopilot. Get up, take a shower, get changed, drink coffee. The same thing I had done every day for years, except this time I was not working. I was standing in the kitchen and drinking my coffee slowly, all of it sitting awkwardly on my shoulders. Mateo slept on the couch, head down in a pillow as if he didn't have a thought. Suitably nice to go to sleep after destroying your wife's life. I stared at him a second, remembering all the things I'd given up for him. The extra shifts, the nights I slept in, the way I stood up for him when everyone said he was lazy. And this is how he pays back to me. When I brought her into my home. By telling me to just adapt to their mad dream of a throuple? Not today. Not ever. I took out my wallet, took one last cup of coffee, and left the door as quietly as possible. I did not say goodbye. I never wrote a note. He did not deserve one. Our law office was on the second floor of a brown building on the quiet end of town. The sort of place you wouldn't spot unless you really did. A curly-haired woman with large eyes smiled at me at the desk. "Hi, I am in a meeting with Mr. Santiago," I said, scanning nervously. "Of course, Camila, right?" She checked her computer. "Both," I said, a twinkle in my eye. He jotted something down. "Okay. And on a cash basis, how much of the house bills are you paying?" "All of it," I groused. "Rent, bills, groceries, everything." "Since April he's been unemployed." He raised an eyebrow. "And you said he is able-bodied. No diseases, no handicaps he could work with?" "None," I said quickly. "He is perfectly fine. Just lazy." "Okay," Mr. Santiago wrote on his notepad. "Here is the good news. You don't have a legal obligation to pay for him except the essentials of household living, and he isn't giving money, so you have leverage." "Leverage?" I asked, leaning forward. "Exactly." He looked over his glasses and then at me. "You can send him a summons to leave. You don't want him in the house, that is. And from all appearances, you do." So fast I nodded, my head hurt. "Yes, absolutely." "Then that is step 1, he said and wrote something. "We're sending him a letter, giving him 30 days to leave. We'll go for a full eviction if he doesn't agree." There was a clearing of the air. 30 days. Another 3 months and my house is mine again. "And now on to the finances," he went on. "Once you file for legal separation or divorce, you are not going to pay for his debts or costs ever again. You are not technically obliged to help him with his household obligations, so you can draw the line." "Oh well." Something calcified inside my chest. "Because I am overpaying for his death." Mr. Santiago smiled a little. "I hear that a lot. And let me say what we're going to do." Back at home, Mateo was up. He was at the kitchen table eating cereal like it was nothing. "Where were you?" He didn't lift his cup much from his bowl. "At work," I lied, placing my purse down. "Had to take care of a couple things." Yeah," he said, guzzling milk. He did not care. He did not even squirm at it. Good, I thought. Stay clueless. For the rest of the day, I didn't go near him. I stuck in the bedroom, scrolling on my phone and researching self-care after betrayal posts. The more I read, the furrier. All the tales were the same story. Woman giving her heart to a man who didn't deserve it. And every time it went something like this. Unleash your power. And so I got to planning. I wasn't gonna be silent that night. I had pushed too much stuff in. Let Mateo go on living as if everything was okay. No more. After dinner, I was on the couch with arms crossed and eyes on him. "We've got to talk," I said sternly. He looked at me and could hear my change in voice. "About what?" "Yo, you should leave." I looked at his straight face. His face twisted in confusion. "What are you talking about?" "You have 30 days, Mateo," I said calmly but insistently. "I spoke to a lawyer. You'll receive an official notification in due course. And then if you are still here, I will get you evicted." He made a quip about it. "You are not serious. Do I look like I am playing games?" I tipped my head. His face fell. He bent over, knees bent. "Camila, come onorevole. Do not do this. I know I slipped, right? But you're gonna shuffle me out. You tossed me out of our marriage the second you landed Gabriela in it." I shouted up. "You made that choice, Mateo. Not me." He leaned back and washed his face. "I have nowhere to go. Not my fault." I was sour. "You had a house, Mateo. You had me. And you threw it away." He didn't say anything for a long time. And then he looked up at me with eyes of something I hadn't seen in a while, fear. "Where do I go?" he whispered. "Text Gabriela." My voice was steely. "I read that she is good at keeping you company." He opened his eyes, red with anger, but nothing. For once, he did not have a point. No excuses, just silence. The next morning, I called Mr. Santiago to let him know I was going to file the notice. The papers would go out that day. Mateo would get his 3 weeks and then he was gone. When I finally left the line, I was as happy as I had been in months. For the first time in a long while, I did not feel like I was drowning. I did not feel weak. I did not feel left in the crosshairs of someone else's decisions. Felt strong. felt free. Gabriela was gone. Mateo would be next. And Camila was finally coming home.